Back in 1987, I was still a little baby boy Ben, but Motley Crue was busy unleashing a buffet of some of their tastiest riffs on Girls, Girls, Girls. And on today's Riff Retrospective, we're going to take a look at some of the choice cuts. Hey there kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. I know a lot of people out there would probably cite Dr. Feelgood as their favorite Crue album, but for me it's all about Girls, 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 mainly because it's just so full of awesome bluesy riffs. Rather than throwing his hat in the shred guitar arms race of the 80s, Mick Mars' playing has always been more rooted in classic blues rock styles, which is probably part of why these riffs have stood the test of time. And on today's video, we're going to find out why. As always, this video is brought to you guys by everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Sign up today for access to a ton of bonus goodies like extra videos, downloadable tabs, backing tracks, and more. This week, everybody who supports my channel, even at that $1 a month level, is going to get access to tabs to go along with all these great riffs. So don't delay, sign up today. Gear-wise for today's video, I'm playing my lovely USA Dunable Minotaur right here, which I've got tuned down one whole step to DGC FAD. Like a lot of other 80s guitar heroes, Mick Mars is known for using the legendary Soldano SLO 100 as part of his guitar rig through his career, so I figured it just makes sense that I try out this Synergy Soldano SLO module for the tones. I'm running that into the power section of this Revv Generator 100P, and all that's running into the UA aux. Now let's talk about those tasty riffs. One of the most underrated downstrokers in guitar history. Mick Mars' right hand is pretty lethal, especially if you go back to some of that early stuff. There's a lot of that stuff that's straight downstroke that is, I think, beyond Metallica tempo. It's pretty insane. For this riff right here, he's using just a lot of double stops, and he's using that low G bass note. This is something that I've always thought was really cool about Motley Crue. Since they tuned down one whole step, all the riffs just kind of sound different. Like every other band during this time period was doing all these pedal tone riffs against A, or A flat if they tuned down a half step. But the way that Crue used this G all the time, it just instantly made them sound a little bit, I don't know, deeper and darker and kind of meaner sounding. Simple ingredients, some classic double stops there on the D and G string, underneath some palm muted chugs on that low G. And up here, that's just your classic kind of B sus4 to D major kind of sound, mainly played here on the G and B strings. He does this all over this album, so get ready for a whole bunch more of that. Even though the band had that super 80s glam image, I always thought a lot of their riffs would have been right at home in like a ZZ Top or Aerosmith song. Again, there's so much classic rock DNA in these riffs that you kind of have to peel back that layer of the image to remind yourself that, like, yeah, these are just good old meat and potatoes rock riffs. One of the coolest things about this record is that Motley Crue discovered the secret of eternal life. And it's not some kind of potion or elixir. It's writing a song that will be played in every strip club in the known universe from now until the end of time. I'm pretty sure that one day in the remote future there's going to be like cockroaches dancing to Girls, Girls, Girls. I've actually had this theory for a while that like they sat down as a band and were like, guys, what if we just wrote a bunch of songs that are perfect to strip to? Because that's what every song on this record feels like to me. And I have to say, if that was their mission, they succeeded. I can barely keep my own clothes on listening to these songs. such a freaking jammin' riff. Again, it's just double stops, power chords, and jamming on those open top strings. There's nothing fancy about it at all. It just really grooves. And that big fat low D just adds some extra weight and heft to the riff. A riff so nice, they used it twice in the chorus of the song. This is the first time that we see this 1-4 kind of movement that's all over this record. They play that riff on the 1, D, then they move it to the 4, G, and play the exact same thing, just transposed up there. You could think about this as just taking that riff and moving it up a string set, which is one of those things that guitar players have been doing since guitar started guitaring. Think about like classic simple blues riffs, right? 1, 4. That movement is used all over this album, and I really like that about it. It's like, why add new riffs into a song? Why introduce new characters into it? If you have one thing that sounds awesome, how about you just move it to a different center within the key? That way you keep that continuity going, but you're still giving the listener something new to listen to. I gotta tell you guys a funny story about the chorus of this song. So a couple of years ago, I was walking around the house and I was humming this song to myself. And I got to the chorus, right? So I was humming, My wife looks at me and she goes, "Why are you humming the Sesame Street theme?" And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, you know, sunny day." And it kind of melted my brain for a second because somehow I never realized that this is totally the Sesame Street melody in the chorus of Girls, Girls, Girls. I can never unhear that, and now neither can you. Thanks, babe. Okay, third track on the record is Dancing on Glass. I'm going to spend more time on this one because I freaking love this song. It's easily one of my favorite Motley Crue songs. Check out this sinister opening riff. I love that riff. Little flat 5 to natural 5 in there, classic hard rock metal intervals to incorporate into your riffs. And then I love when it goes to that verse part. It's that really simple thing based around, again, 1-4. There's that 1-4 blues movement we talked about earlier. And again, you can see how this riff evolved. At some point, either Mick or Nikki, I don't know who wrote this one, probably learned, again, classic blues shuffle, and then figured out new ways to play it. It's simple stuff, but I wish that I wrote riffs that are that freaking cool. So a weird thing happens in the pre-chorus. We've been kind of on this G tonal center for most of the song, and then right before the chorus, it goes down to this riff on E flat. This riff right here has this E flat, a D flat, a C. It honestly sounds more like it goes to like an E flat 7 kind of sound. That's a really weird, kind of jazzy move, and I've always dug that. And then another weird thing happens in the chorus of the song. So initially it feels just like the main riff. And then the bass note starts moving around. But just kind of. It's kind of subliminal. Like in my head, I always thought the riff went with that same low, what would that be, F bass note going through the whole thing. Mick actually doesn't do that. He plays it once, and then for the rest of the riff, he's back to using that G pedal tone. But just the suggestion that he's actually moved down here, and the fact that Nikki continues playing that note on the bass, makes it sound like the entire riff is moved, but it really hasn't. Just one note has moved and that's it. And that happens next in the chorus too, whenever it moves down to E flat. So it sounds like the chorus is following, you know, stray cat strut changes, but in reality, he's playing that same pedal tone the entire time. It's a really weird effect, but this is also something that you can see them doing in their earlier catalog too, because that's exactly the same changes as Too Young to Fall in Love. That riff has those, you know, pedal tones of G. Then you think it's going, moving down the scale just like this tune does. But in reality, it's only the first note. And then he continues playing the same G bass note like this. It's really deceptive. It's like just a little ear trick that he does. And I love the outro of this song too, with that simple riff based around C. Mick Mars is a badass slide player. I am not. I barely dabble with slide at all, so pardon my screechy, out-of-tune slide playing. But he plays some really awesome, classic, bluesy stuff all over Bad Boy Boogie. I'm not exactly certain about some of those positions I'm using, by the way. I don't know, it seems more like him to put it up here in the fretted position, but I'm not exactly sure about that. This song's got a really great slide guitar solo in it too, and this is something I really love about Mick Mars, is like the guy wasn't really out to shred your face off or like prove that he was a, you know, insane guitarist or anything, which is kind of weird because when you think about like the biggest hair metal band ever, it's arguably Motley Crue, but unlike every other band that you think of when you think of this era of metal, there's not really a lot of shredding in Motley Crue songs. It's just good, tasty, simple stuff that suits the song rather than serves the guitar player. I always appreciated Nono right here in the middle of the record. It's just a nice little chill palate cleanser from all the hard rocking that you've been listening to and the riffs to come. Based around just a simple idea, I mean, you have this kind of D major dyad on top, sorry, C major, we're tuned down a step, with that bass note moving around underneath it. Nice and chill, very effective. Although I'm not actually sure if this is a guitar or not. If you told me this was like a Casio keyboard set to acoustic guitar, I would believe you. It doesn't quite sound like a real guitar to me. I don't know. Let me know if you know in the comments section. Next up is 5 Years Dead, which is one of my favorite tunes from the record. It starts off with this kick-ass riff. Again, more bluesy ideas. Any riff that features the fifth, the sixth, and the flat seven is instantly gonna sound really bluesy, and this has got all those. So does the verse, and again, guess what kind of move it is? We went from a riff based around the 1 to a riff based around the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's always worked, and it always will. It's worth mentioning too that in the chorus of this song they ripped themselves off. Actually, they ripped themselves ripping Sesame Street off, because that part where they sing 5 Years Dead is also girls, 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 is also sunny day. It's kind of all the same thing, but who cares? It's freaking awesome. At the outro of that song, we get more of that 1 to 4 action we've been talking about this whole video, where they take that main riff and move it up. All in the name of rock and roll has some, well, it has some lyrics. I'll put it that way. Let's not talk about those lyrics, and let's talk about the kick-ass riffs instead. Those have aged a little better. Once again, we got root, flat third, regular third. Those are some of the bluesiest intervals that there are. They're used all over bluesy, 80s hard rock kind of stuff. And those double stops that he plays are outlining the other bluesy intervals of fifth, sixth, flat seven. So this riff kind of has all of the blues rock ingredients in it. Whenever it goes to the verse, guess what? It moves from 1 to 4 because it always sounds good. You can't say that. I also think that Vince Neil sounds exactly like Eric Cartman from South Park whenever he says rock and rolla in the chorus. Be sure to check that out. Something for Nothing, one of my favorite riffs on the record, and again, guess what intervals it uses? 1, flat third, third, fifth, flat seven, and 6. Those are the ingredients you need for this sound, and he uses all of them. Check this riff out. And guess what it does when it gets to the verse? The exact same riff, just moved to the 4 position instead. I love that bone crunching chorus too. That almost has like an AC/DC kind of vibe to me. And again, 1 and 4, guys. Like there's nothing really that fancy going on with this stuff. It works in like every song on this record, and you really never get tired of hearing it. And again, some really dope slide playing in the solo section of this song. I just love that he went with that super old school approach rather than doing what everybody else was already doing, which was, tapping and shredding and sweeping their asses off. I think that Mick made the smart choice here, which is to look at what everybody else is doing, and instead of saying, oh crap, I have to do what they're doing, I have to, raise my technique level to get on their level of shred-eye knightdom. Instead, he looked at all those guys that were working really hard with their chops and stuff and said, oh cool, they're already doing that, I don't have to. Nice. Your All I Need is the album's closer. It's kind of the mandatory ballad song of the record. Not really a lot of riffs in it. Starts off with this figure that's just based around 2 simple power chords. Again, nothing fancy or anything, but still really good tune. This one to me, again, has a classic rock vibe. Like if Boston did this song, it would totally make sense. Nice little chill closer to an album chock full of kick-ass riffs. So there you go, guys, a guided tour through some of the sickest riffs of my favorite Motley Crue album. But I'm sure I missed your favorite riffs on the record, so be sure to let me know what they are down there in the comments section. Also be sure to let me know what albums you guys would like to see broken down on the next installment of Riff Retrospective. I love making these videos for you guys. I love worshiping at the altar of the almighty riff, so let me know what you guys would like to see next. Be sure to grab the tabs for this video as well as tons of other bonus goodies over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Even for just $1 a month, there is so much extra content on there, so don't delay, sign up today. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, all that typical stuff that YouTube people ask you to do. It really does help me out a lot, so be sure to do that stuff. And tune in for the next installment of Riff Retrospective. Less clicking, more picking.